Welcome to Sales, Tax, and More, your go-to resource for all things state tax related. Now, here is your host, Michael Fleming.
Hi, Mike Fleming here, founder of Sales, Tax, and More, and today's co-host of the Sales, Tax, and More podcast, where we talk about everybody's favorite topic, which is, of course, sales tax. Today, we're going to step away from sales tax a little bit, though, and talk about how to protect your brand with a very special guest, James Thomson. But before we introduce you to James, I want to introduce you to my co-host, Ellie Moffat. Ellie?
Hey, everyone. Hey, everyone. It's really great to be here. I'll do a quick introduction for Sales, Tax, and More. Sales, Tax, and More is a full-service consulting and solutions firm. We have a really great team here of experienced tax professionals who are very dedicated to fulfilling any of your state tax or related needs. So we do a lot of returns, registrations, consultations, research, and like our name states, more. So if you have questions about our services, please reach out. We'd love to answer those questions for you. Back to you, Mike.
Okay, Ellie, thanks very much. And, I've known James for years, and he's an extremely intelligent, very accomplished, and the leading authority in this area. So James is a partner of BuyBox Experts, which is a managed services agency supporting brand executive teams selling online. And prior to that, he served as the business head of Amazon Services, the division that is responsible for recruiting tens of thousands of sellers annually to the Amazon marketplace. He also served as the first Fulfillment by Amazon account manager. So lots and lots of experience with Amazon. I personally met James through the Prosper Show. And for those of you who don't know, the Prosper Show is a continuing education conference for large Amazon sellers, which in my opinion, it's the best type of show out there. Far better than all the others. But going on, I've actually had the opportunity to speak there a number of years on different tax-related subjects. This year, the show is actually postponed until August 31st, but I'll be speaking there again. This time, we're going to be talking not only about sales tax, but also about income tax and some of the other gross receipts taxes and franchise taxes that I think are going to be a bigger issue. But James co-founded the show back in 2015. He's also the author of 2 books. So in 2017, he came out with the Amazon Marketplace Dilemma, which was designed for brand executives seeking to optimize their distribution strategy on the Amazon Marketplace. And then this year, he co-authored the book, Controlling Your Brand in the Age of Amazon, which is designed for brand executives struggling to handle critical channel management issues. And when I mentioned that James is very intelligent, he's got a bachelor's degree from the University of Alberta, an MBA from Vanderbilt University, and a PhD in marketing from Northwestern University, the Kellogg School. So welcome, James.
Wow. Thank you for that marvelous introduction. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Michael.
Oh,
glad to be here today.
Our pleasure. Thanks for being here. Now, with this COVID-19 crisis, we've seen, how well Amazon is doing in the marketplace out there. And lots of companies that are not selling on Amazon are looking to see how they might become involved. And one of the things that you mentioned to me was that even brands that are not selling directly on Amazon are selling on Amazon. So 2 things to get us started off here. Your books mention brands. We've mentioned brands a lot in the intro. Can you explain what a brand is? And then can you expand on that statement, even brands that aren't selling on Amazon are actually selling on Amazon?
Well, a lot to unpack there. So let's start with, what does a brand mean to Amazon? And by the way, this has changed quite a bit over the past few years. Today, Amazon recognizes that brands, and when I say real brands, I'm talking about companies that have U.S. registered trademarks on their brand name. Amazon recognizes that these types of organizations are probably the best source of content for listings, products in that brand catalog. And so Amazon introduced a program called Brand Registry several years ago, where US registered trademark brands are in a position where they can basically say to Amazon, while we recognize there are lots of people contributing content to the Amazon catalog for our products, we actually have the authoritative content. Let us provide you with that content so that customers get the experience that we think is most robust and aligned with everything we're trying to do in every other channel. And Amazon said, great, let's do that. We'll give you the opportunity to submit content. Now, it's important to understand that Brand Registry is a tool for helping brands to lock down content. It's not a tool for helping brands to decide who will and won't sell the products on Amazon. Amazon is by definition an open marketplace, which means that basically anybody can sell basically anything on the site. Amazon welcomes all sorts of sellers to come onto the site. For many brands, they look at Amazon and they're disgruntled by the fact that there are often many unauthorized sellers that participate in the sales of their products. And so when we talk about this issue of whether a brand wants to sell on Amazon or not, it's probably already being sold there. Chances are, if a brand is popular in any way, somebody has said, let me see if I can put a few units of this product on Amazon and see if I can generate some sales. And quite frankly, because of the open marketplace nature of this marketplace, what we end up with is basically an incentive for people to go and find products that are popular and to put them on Amazon in order to try to make a buck. Totally drives brands nuts that there isn't this opportunity to decide who will and won't represent the brands on the channel. But the reality is that's how Amazon has grown to be as big as it is. There's lots of duplicate selection, and hence there's lots of price competition. Price competition means typically lower prices, and lower prices means customers are usually happier because they can get things on Amazon less expensive. The problem is, as a brand, you're trying to create a consistent set of deliverables across channels, consistent messaging, consistent prices. Along comes the Amazon marketplace where anybody can create content and anybody can sell at whatever price they want. It's a very challenging channel for a very challenging channel for brands to manage because they don't fully understand how the sandbox works. And it's apparent that it doesn't work like any other sandbox in which they participate. So what is a brand? Amazon says a brand is somebody that has a US registered trademark. How does Amazon think about those brands? We're happy to take your content, but figuring out who's going to sell your products on the channel, that's up to you, Mr. Brand, to figure out. We at Amazon, we are all inclusive. We welcome all and everyone to participate on the channel. So we can talk more about that, but that's where the frustration typically begins with brands, that they have unknown sellers selling at sub-desirable prices, creating channel conflict for the brand, whereby traditional retailers, authorized resellers, and other channels get very, very frustrated to see that prices are much cheaper on Amazon. And by the way, prices are very transparent on Amazon. It's easy for anybody to go on their phone and say, oh, I can get the same product on Amazon for $2 less. Why do I have to buy it in your store when I can get it cheaper on Amazon?
All makes great sense and great explanation there. Thank you. I guess a follow-up would be, is there anything that a brand can do? How do they, with this pricing pressure from all these sellers on Amazon, how do brands compete, or what are some of the strategies available to them?
So again, multiple aspects to answering that effectively. First and foremost, a brand needs to control its branding. So this brand registry program is certainly a good start. If I'm a brand and I've invested millions of dollars in trying to create an awareness of what that set of promises are that are underlying my branding, it's important for me to say, listen, whether or not I want my products to be sold on Amazon, somebody's probably going to sell them. So let's make sure at a minimum we go in and we create a consistent set of messages so that consumers don't see something very different than what they would see in any other channel that the brand might better control. So if a brand is waking up to the fact that they have to have an Amazon channel strategy, the first step is go in and lock down your branding content. Make sure you've got the right pictures, the right bullet points, the right content that properly describes your products, that is clear, consistent, up to date with everything else you do in every other channel. Now we get to the harder problem, which is, okay, now you've got this high quality content. who are all these people selling my products on Amazon and how do I get rid of them? That's a much harder problem to solve. And by the way, it's completely solvable. But most brands have operated in a traditional retailer-focused manner for years and years, where they've established good relationships with their retailers or distributors, and they're used to relying on the retailers and distributors to represent their brands to consumers. Unfortunately, if the brand hasn't been very aggressive in putting policies in place around who can sell products in which channels and what kind of policing is going to be underscoring those policies, what ends up happening is retailers and distributors sell as much product as they can in as many channels as they can. And typically that means that products end up either being sold quietly by retailers on Amazon, often under disguised seller names, or product gets diverted to somebody else who in turn turns around and sells products. In the United States, there is a whole bunch of case law around an issue called first sale doctrine, where basically anybody has the right to buy a product and turn around and resell it without the brand's permission. So you and I can walk into a Target, we can buy a box of Lego and say, all right, I'm going to turn around, I'm going to sell this on Amazon and become a Lego seller on Amazon. Well, the Lego company probably doesn't think particularly highly of you or me being their seller of record. And yet that's the way not only the law works, but it's also, Amazon has taken advantage of the fact that there is this ability for anybody to sell anything. It turns out there are ways to remove first sale doctrine as a legal protection for unauthorized sellers to sell everything and anything under the sun. To make that happen, brands need to invest in what's called an online reseller policy. But more importantly, they need to enforce those policies, which often means going to retailers and distributors and saying, no, you can't take my product and sell it wherever you feel like selling. No, you can't sell it on Amazon. No, you can't divert it to anybody and everybody that might come along. And oh, by the way, one of the biggest internal challenges for brands is they are often sales team driven, where the sales team's job is to sell as much product as possible, not to sell as much product as possible and also make sure that the brand equity is properly managed forever going forward. And what ends up happening is the sales teams will often look hard for ways to sell product as they close out their quarter and hit good numbers. They will dump product on anybody that shows up with a purchase order and cash in hand. Those types of behaviors are great for the sales team and they're terrible for the brand itself. And so as a brand makes that decision to evolve the way that it looks at its channel management strategy, they need to recognize that online marketplaces like Amazon have created a whole series of new incentives for people to do things that are not aligned with what brands want to do around protecting their brand equity. So as a brand puts an online reseller policy in place and decides who will and won't be allowed to sell in this channel, it means the brand is going to have to not only start saying no to people that come along and want to sell the products, but it typically also means they have to go to their existing retailers and distributors and say, if we catch you diverting product or if we catch you selling on a channel like Amazon, there will be ramifications. We may shut you down and no longer allow you to sell products, or we may prevent you from having access to new products, or we may limit the amount of inventory you can have on certain key SKUs. All of these things are meant to create both a incentive for retailers to do the brick and mortar retailing they do very well, to do that and focus on that, while the brand finds people that are well versed in the ways of Amazon and can best represent the brand in that particular channel. It's hard for brands to evolve and make these types of changes because if you've been retailer focused for years and years, guess who your golfing buddies are? They're all the same retailers that are diverting your product, creating this mess for you in the first place. So being in a position that you can step back and say, listen, I have to protect the brand. That is my first job as a senior executive of the company. I have to protect the brand. The sales will happen, whether it's coming through this channel or that channel, the sales will happen. I just need to make sure that I create consistent messaging and consistent pricing so consumers are not inherently driven to go buy on Amazon just because the product happens to be cheaper over there.
All makes great sense. Hey, as you're speaking, I started thinking, a lot of these brick and mortar stores, especially during this crisis, have not been doing very well at all. and the online stores have, people selling on Amazon or other platforms. Are you seeing any leniency with some of these brands in allowing their retailers to sell online? Any modifications? Do you see that happening on a going forward basis, as there are predictions that, online is, even though it's been growing, it's going to grow even at a quicker pace going forward? Do you see anything changing?
I think it's good for retailers to be asking the question, can we set up our own Shopify or BigCommerce site and sell products on our own site? And I think it's typically healthy for brands to say, okay, yeah, that's fine. If you can drive traffic to your own listings on your own sites, you should do that. If brands start letting every retailer that comes along start also selling on marketplaces like Amazon, which happen to have most of the sales right now in retail, you're going to quickly fall back to the situation we were in before, where you now have undesirable competition existing on the marketplace. The brand should still be focused on driving inventory and selection to Amazon and doing that itself, whether through a single authorized reseller or the brand deciding to go direct to consumer through its own third-party seller account. If they start inviting every retailer that's out there asking to also participate, what's the point of having 3 or 4 companies who are supposed to all sell at the same price under the same MAP policy? Chances are somebody's going to try to cheat and lower the price. Before you know it, you have price erosion. So as painful as this is for retailers who have basically seen 100% of their sales traffic disappear, it's not in the best interest of the brand to reopen competition on a channel that the brand has hopefully tightly controlled through efforts like an online reseller policy.
Gotcha.
So, the flip side of this whole discussion, Mike, is what do brick and mortar retailers do in a situation where they have no foot traffic? And unfortunately, making quick changes to get consumers to buy through the traditional brick and mortar channels, right now there's really only 2 ways to solve that problem, if in fact there will continue to be limited foot traffic for the foreseeable future. Number one, the brand has to have, the retailer has to have an online shopping destination, whether that's their own site, whether it's through the brand's own site where you can do pickup through the retailer, whether you're doing delivery to the consumer through a third-party carrier like the Postal Service or UPS, or whether the consumer is actually driving up to the retail store to have bags dropped into the car of the customer. Those models are fine, and those are good short-term solutions. But the reality is, a brick and mortar retailer that wants foot traffic isn't going to get it anytime soon, whether they've got an online strategy or not. So the sales are going to have to come by way of creating this alternative online presence and recognizing we're not going to sneak customers into the store to buy product. The other thing to keep in mind is customers don't want to sneak into the store right now. Yes, you see, in this state and that state, the state loosens up some of its restrictions and people flock to a particular store here or there. But in general, customers across the country still want a safe shopping environment. And there isn't a safer shopping environment than sitting at home in your pajamas and going click, 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 and having products delivered to your home. I love this lazy consumerism. It's great, but it's also very, very safe. And quite frankly, chances are there's more selection and more opportunity to find the color of product and the size of product you want if you're doing it online, rather than wandering down to the store that's been closed for 60, 70 days that probably hasn't had any inventory updated recently. And so I don't understand why people would risk going into a store to have what is likely to be a poor shopping experience and put their own health at risk.
Yeah, James, I can't think of anyone better to talk about this than you. Your experience offers a lot of really valuable insight for people right now. And I think that everyone, for many reasons, they're feeling overwhelmed with all the things that they're facing, the foot traffic, protecting themselves from other retailers. What would be a piece of advice you could offer if someone were looking for help, if someone were trying to find someone to help them figure out these intricacies?
Well, let's talk about there are retailers needing help and there are brands needing help. And by the way, both of those groups, if they're having to make these changes right now, they're only going to be able to partly solve the situation short term. Because to solve these problems long term involves making investments in online retail consultants, making investments in technology to support online sales. Those types of things don't happen instantly. I look at what's happened, just with my own grocery shopping experience. When COVID went down, I started trying online grocery shopping for the first time. And it was definitely a, how shall I put it, an unbalanced experience depending on where you went to shop. But what I'm seeing now is that here we are 10 weeks in, my local grocery store has decided, oh yeah, I should probably figure out how to get people to buy products from the local store. And so they've patched together a solution, but it took them 10 weeks. And I'm sure an awful lot of wrangling at corporate to figure out, okay, how do we recover partially to get back some of the foot traffic and some of the sales we had? There are consultants out there that can advise on how to do channel management strategy and how to help brick and mortar retail stores expand beyond brick and mortar into online. I've certainly participated in that space, and many of my colleagues have done that as well. What's important to understand is you can't hire any consultant who will fix this problem so that next week you're ready to go. It is an unfortunate situation where software and infrastructure and reshifting and retraining how employees help to create a fluid process for consumers to get products, that's going to take time. And for many companies, it's important to keep in mind, brick and mortar still accounts for over 80% of all sales in this country under normal circumstances. So while sales online have skyrocketed, the reality is there's an awful lot of stuff that's just not getting bought anywhere, because online certainly hasn't increased fivefold across all categories. It's increased a lot, but certainly nowhere near that. So a lot of products are just not getting purchased by anybody anywhere. So there's no easy way to recover and get back to where you were until we get back to a situation where there is foot traffic and customers do feel comfortable going back into stores. And more importantly, customers feel more comfortable spending what disposable income they do have on what I describe as products that are wants, not needs. We have been focused very much on the needs of, okay, I'm stuck at home. I need to get stuff for my family. I need to get distraction items for my children. Those are very, very different than, oh, I want a pair of luxury jeans that will make me feel good when I wander out with my friends. That's not where people are spending their money right now. When you layer on the complexity of literally tens of millions of people now being out of work, there is a lot less disposable income available. And while many of those jobs are being lost to lower paying jobs, we're also seeing higher paying jobs, i.e. prime customers who are losing disposable income. And so we're in a situation where even if foot traffic returns to stores, until consumers are back in a position where they've got disposable income to be able to spend money on the wants rather than just the needs, it's going to be a long, long path to recovery to get us to a place where not only consumers have money to spend, but retail stores that don't really have anything uniquely positioned better than online, for those types of stores to be in a place that they can get back the kind of sales levels they had in the past.
Yeah, and all of that makes great sense, James. But one of the things I've been thinking about is we've already seen, a longer term trend. You mentioned that online sales account for about 20% of all retail sales now, but that's been growing dramatically. And, people want, the greater selection. They want the ease of avoiding the crowds even before this crisis. Now, the crisis is accelerating this. And some people may go back to shopping in stores, but I think that more people are now accustomed to this online shopping. We may see this overall trend accelerate. So when you're talking about investing in this, it's not just for a short period of time. It's not just for this COVID-19 time, but I think that it's the way of the future. You see anything that would say otherwise?
Certainly, we're going to continue to see increased online adoption. No question there. If you're a retailer right now that has no sales coming in, you're likely not in an investment position. You don't have disposable income to say, let's do a project, let's get online. And so while you desperately need to get online and have an online strategy, you're in your worst position possible to be actually paying for this kind of opportunity. At the same time, you have a lot of retail stores that basically were not doing particularly well, and this has just been what's the expression? The last aspect to kill the brand or to kill the retailer. And here we are, where whether it's the Neiman Marcus's, the JCPenney's, there will be many, many other stores as well that go under. This is a rare situation, and I know this sounds morbid, but this is a rare situation for an executive team at a retailer that hasn't been doing well to say, you know what, we're either going under or we're cutting half our stores, we're laying off half of our employees. And from a PR perspective, it's not going to be a big deal because everybody understands. We get it. There's no foot traffic. The end is near, or it's nearer than it ever was for many of these companies. And so those cuts will be made. At the same time, you're in a situation where brands that have historically relied completely on retailers to get the job done, getting products to consumers, brands are going to say, you know what? We can't have a model that relies exclusively on retailers. And so we need to set up a Shopify or a BigCommerce site. We need to work with companies that can help us get online. We hate the concept of selling on Amazon, but the reality is we need to be there. Or we hate the idea of being in Walmart, but we have to be there. And so brands reevaluating who are going to be their retail partners offline and what are they going to do in terms of identifying online retail partners. Those are the hard discussions that brand teams need to be having right now. Because if the brands don't get this figured out, not only are they going to be potentially exposed to a situation where the retailers continue to be shut out for a while from foot traffic, but even when the foot traffic resumes, these retailers are not going to be the source of innovation, helping brands to diversify their distribution risk. So it's really, in my view, it's on the brands that make the products to ultimately decide what is the best way for us to remain engaged with consumers and not be reliant on retailers and distributors to get the full job done.
Yeah, all great information, James. And I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. I know that Buy Box Experts has made a couple of acquisitions lately and is growing. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do at Buy Box Experts and how these recent acquisitions are helping?
Sure. So Buy Box Experts is a company that exists specifically to help brands make sense of this Amazon channel. Many brands want to be in Amazon, but don't have the right kind of people in-house to actually think through all the different steps, or they're not familiar with the rules of the game, so to speak. Most of our clients turn to us and say, we're brands, we want to be on Amazon, we don't want to handle the day-to-day operations. Can you run that for us? So there are really there's really three different models that are available to most brands to get onto Amazon. Number one, they can wholesale products to Amazon. Amazon becomes the seller of record. That's called the first-party relationship. That's fine if you're a really big brand. And quite frankly, Amazon will call you. Don't call Amazon. They'll call you if they want to do that. A brand might decide to go direct to consumer where they set up a third-party seller account, and they are actually the seller of record and responsible for each order that goes out to customers. That's the typical model that brands experience today when they decide they want to participate on Amazon. There's also the model where the brand says, you know what, we don't really want to have to learn Amazon inside and out, so let's go find an established third-party seller, and let's make them the exclusive reseller of our brand in the Amazon channel. That's a really good model for brands to say, listen, we're really good at doing B2B wholesaling because we really want to be a product and sourcing company. And that's fine. The brand will make wholesale margins selling through an exclusive reseller. We would argue that for many brands, it's much more interesting for them to go direct to consumer, make retail margins, and also have access to the data that allows them to learn a lot more about customer preferences and essentially use Amazon as a petri dish for testing out new products, new bundles, new price points. Those are things that brands typically have absolutely no opportunity to do if they've historically been B2B companies relying on retailers to do all the pricing and the merchandising of products. So our company works with brands to allow them to go direct to consumer and we manage all the back end aspects of that. We also do advisory work with senior management teams at brands to help them think through how do they need to evolve their channel management strategy so that they have adapted to these significant changes that marketplaces like Amazon have created, these extra pressures around the potential for unauthorized sellers to pile on and start dumping products at lower prices in a channel like Amazon. So between those two types of major services we offer, the good news for us is our phones are ringing off the hook right now. Brands are waking up and realizing, I don't want to be on Amazon, but I believe I need to be there. So how do I make it as good as possible for me as a brand? And we also see situations where brands say, I had no idea how much upside opportunity there was for me, but in the last 8 to 10 weeks, we've seen sales take off, and we realize it's too much for us to handle. So can you please help us? So under those two circumstances, again, we're very blessed to be in a situation where we are in the right industry at the right time right now. We want to continue to help brands make the right decisions that work for them, given all the other channel management decisions they've made to this point. We like being the bad cops if necessary, helping brands to say, listen, you can't keep doing it the same way. Otherwise, somebody like Amazon's ultimately going to decide what happens to your brand anywhere online. That's not a message that most senior executives of brands want to hear. So much of our mantra is around just tell the truth, lay it out. Facts are the facts. They're ugly, but you need to understand what's going on and what's going to happen to your brand if you choose to pretend that somehow the Amazon channel is like every other channel.
Yeah, you made some great points there, James. So if someone wants to work with you, how can they get in touch with you?
So we're at buyboxexperts.com. That's BUYBOX experts.com. And I'm James at buyboxexperts.com. Love to have the opportunity to talk with brands and figure out if there's something that we can do to advise them on how to make better decisions within this Amazon sandbox.
James, one question that I think that a number of our clients or listeners want to know, they're already selling online. You mentioned that one of the ways that brands can get online is by going to an established seller. Can the sellers reach out directly to the brands?
It is, quite frankly, it is a land grab right now. Companies that understand how to sell online, who are really good at, for example, the Amazon sandbox, many of them already are reaching out to brands and saying, listen, I know this channel cold. I can help you not only protect your brand, but I can help you grow your business. And many of these established exclusive resellers, these are exactly the conversations they're having. They're reaching out to brands, whether that's relationships they already have, whether that's walking the floor at trade shows, whether that's cold calling on brands, saying, listen, I can see what's happening to your brand on Amazon, and it's ugly. Let me show you what we've done for other brands. Here are some case studies. You need to get serious about this. And by the way, it's not going to cost you anything more than what you would normally wholesale products to us at, but we would like the monopoly, please, of having the exclusive opportunity to sell your product on Amazon. Here's the problem for many of these online resellers, though. Even if the brand says, yes, I designate you or I designate you, if that brand isn't going to get serious about distribution control, some form of channel governance where they actively work to remove the unauthorized sellers, all you're going to have is one authorized reseller and a bunch of unauthorized sellers running around. And guess who wins in that situation? It's the unauthorized sellers who are willing to cut prices and sell below what the authorized seller is being mandated to sell at. So it's important for a brand to say, yep, we want to align with particular companies that can represent our interests, but it's also important for the brand to say, and we're prepared to enforce our brand distribution rights adequately to ensure that we don't get in a situation where we've essentially designated an authorized seller for no meaningful benefit. I've seen situations, in fact, many years ago, I was an exclusive reseller for certain brands, and those brands didn't make those channel governance decisions properly, and ended up where I literally couldn't sell anything without breaking the rules. And I said, I don't want to break the rules, so please buy back my inventory and I'm out of here. And the brand said, well, why don't you like my brand? Well, it has nothing to do with your brand. It has to do with your lack of willingness to control your distribution. And that's why we wrote the second book that we wrote, the Controlling Your Brand in the Age of Amazon. Brands don't seem to understand that their products are going to be on Amazon anyways. And if their products are popular, unauthorized sellers are going to say, I see a buck to make, and I'm going to take your widget and I'm going to go sell it and make a buck. And as long as there's no opportunity for me to make a buck, then I'll go find some other brand. But in the meantime, I've got easy access to diverted inventory. I can make a buck, so I'll continue to sell your product as an unauthorized seller.
And James, we've talked about your books. How can people get copies of your books?
Well, there's this place called Amazon.com, and we actually sell the books on this site. So if you look up my name, James Thomson, Thomson, you'll find my author page, and my books are listed there. They're very inexpensive investments for brand executives to gain much better knowledge on how does this Amazon marketplace work? How do I make sure that my brand doesn't get hurt by not actively participating in this channel? And by the way, they're very good sleep aids. They're pretty dry material. So if you're struggling to get a good night's sleep during this COVID period, buy my books and read them in small chunks.
All right. That is absolutely great information there, James. I personally am going to read them because I want to be up on all of this. But if I'm ever sleepy at night, then I'll remember that good advice. Before we wrap up, James, any last words that you want to share with the audience?
You had talked earlier about the inevitability of online continuing to grow, continuing to become more important. If you're a brand today and you are still thinking about what do you want to do online, the good news is there are lots of options. You don't have to be the seller of record. You can work with other types of companies who specialize in online channels. But you've got to be thinking, where do I go to where my customers already are shopping? If customers are already shopping online and you're not there or you're not actively there, that means that your competitors who are better positioned and moving faster than you, they're going to grab share. So in many ways, if you want to be a customer-focused organization, meaning you will serve customers wherever it is that they want to buy products, you've got to have an online channel strategy. And here in the United States, online strategies have got to start with, what am I doing on Amazon, and am I representing and protecting my brand adequately? So with that, those are hard words for somebody who doesn't want to sell on Amazon. But the reality is, that's where customers are. That's where they're opening up their wallets and spending money. And that's where your competitors are. And so you've got to figure out, how do you outposition yourself so that you can grab more than your fair share. One of the things that continues to amaze me about the Amazon channel is there are literally hundreds of thousands of these born on Amazon brands that only exist on Amazon. These are companies that understand how to play in the Amazon sandbox, and they come along and they eat the lunch of national brands every day of the week. And why do they do that? Because they know how to sell in Amazon. They know how to win organic search. They know how to win customer conversion, and they know how to do that better than anybody else. Amazon is a transactional marketplace where the power of branding is very different than what brands are used to seeing in retail settings. So you've got to have an Amazon channel strategy. Even if that doesn't include selling, you've got to be thinking about, how do you protect your brand? How might you leverage this for advertising? But you've got to be thinking about this, and you've got to get serious about Amazon.
All great information, James, and we really appreciate you stopping by to share your knowledge and wealth of experience here. So thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Michael. Thanks for having me, Ellie.
Thanks for coming.
Our pleasure. And remember, if you have any sales tax issues or franchise tax issues or other gross receipts, any type of tax-related issues at all, go to www.salestaxandmore.com. We've got lots of free resources out there, and if you need more than that, please reach out, and we are very happy to help you. So thank you, everyone, for attending today's show, and thanks again once more, James, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to click subscribe and check out all of the resources we have out on the web.